I will never forget the moment my life split into two halves, before I walked into my yard that evening and after. I had just returned from Phoenix. 3 days earlier, I stood beside my younger sister's hospital bed, as she took her last breath after a long, painful battle with cancer. I had buried her with my own hands. I had held her children as they cried. And I came home hoping desperately that my son Robert would at least hug me when I walked in. But what I found instead was silence. A silence so cold it almost felt rehearsed. I opened the gate to my house, the same two-story house with pale yellow walls that I had worked 40 years to buy. The same house I gifted to Robert when he married Danielle because I wanted them to start their life strong. And then I froze. My clothes, my journals, my late husband's photos, even the shawl my grandmother knitted for me before she died. Everything was scattered across the lawn, as if someone had picked up my memories and thrown them out like garbage. My purse slipped from my hand. I couldn't breathe. What is this?" I whispered. Then she appeared. Danielle. My daughter-in-law. Her hair was curled, makeup perfect, outfit expensive enough that I knew immediately she had spent money that wasn't hers. "Oh, Carol, you're back already," she said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. I stared at her, at the woman who was supposed to be family. "What is all this?" I asked, my voice shaking. "Oh, that." She pointed at the pile of my belongings. "We did a little clean out. Those old things were taking up too much space." "Old things? Those were my life's treasures." "But those are my belongings," I said. She shrugged. "I know. But we need the room now since we're having a baby." My heart sank. "A baby?" I whispered. She rolled her eyes. "Yes. Didn't Robert tell you? I'm 3 months pregnant. And that's how I found out. Not from my son. Not through a phone call. But through a woman who had just thrown my whole life on the grass." "I need to speak to Robert," I said. "He's at work," she replied dismissively. "And anyway, we set up a place for you." She grabbed my arm and dragged me toward the back of the house. She opened the door to the small utility room, a 6x6 damp storage closet with a folding bed and one dim bulb. "There," she said proudly. "Your new space. It's tiny but manageable. Just don't make noise. I can't handle stress right now." Stress. I had just buried my sister. I could barely stand, and she couldn't handle stress. But here's the thing. They didn't know who they were dealing with. Inside me something cracked. But something else awakened. Calmly I looked at Danielle. "You're right," I said softly. "It is time for a deep clean." Her smile wavered. I took out my phone and called my lawyer. "Mr. Mendez," I said when he answered. "I need an appointment tomorrow morning. It's urgent." Danielle's smile completely disappeared. Because for the first time, I wasn't the old woman she thought she could step on. I was the woman who built this home. And I was about to take it back. The night after I was pushed into that tiny storage room, I barely slept. My body was exhausted, but my mind wouldn't stop replaying everything. My sister's last moments, the long trip home, and then finding my life thrown across the yard like worthless trash. The sadness slowly turned into something stronger. A quiet fire inside me. A voice that whispered, "You need to stand up now." Around 11 p.m., Robert finally came home. I could hear him and Danielle talking in low voices behind their bedroom door. But he never came to check on me. Not a word, not even a knock. I waited for an hour before gently knocking on their door. "Robert, it's me." He opened it just a little, not enough to let me in. His face looked tired. "Mom, this isn't a good time. Danielle needs rest." I stared at him, searching for even a little warmth in his eyes. But all I saw was distance. "Robert, they threw my things outside. They moved me into the storage room. And I found out about the baby from her, not you." He rubbed his forehead. "Mom, things are different now. We need space. Danielle is stressed." "So, I'm the problem?" I whispered. He didn't answer. He closed the door. I stood there for a long moment. Not angry. Not even shocked. Just empty. I went back to that cold little room and sat on the edge of the thin, hard mattress. I tried to calm myself, but something told me to check the small notebook I always carried, the one where I wrote down household expenses. As I flipped through the pages, I began noticing withdrawals. Large ones. Regular ones. All taken from the emergency savings account I had given Robert access to. Instead of listing each amount, here's the truth. In the past 8 months, more than $45,000 had disappeared. My heart felt like it stopped. I checked the account balance. What used to be a comfortable emergency fund had been drained down to almost nothing. They hadn't just disrespected me. They had taken advantage of me. Trying to steady myself, I stepped out into the backyard for air. The night was quiet, and for a brief moment I felt the weight lifting. Until Miss Lucy from next door called out softly, "Carol, honey, I didn't want to upset you before, but I saw Danielle selling your mother's antique furniture last week. She took the cash and left in her car." My breath caught painfully. Those antiques were my family's history. Pieces of my grandmother's life, my mother's life. Memories you cannot buy again. Danielle had sold them for money. Right there in that moment, something changed inside me. The sadness didn't disappear. It hardened. It sharpened. The next morning, I went straight to my lawyer. When he reviewed the deed to the house, he looked up at me with a small smile. "Carol, your son never completed the legal transfer. The house is still yours." The relief I felt wasn't joy, it was justice. When I got back home that afternoon, I found Robert sitting alone. His face looked troubled. "Mom, Danielle told me you want us out," he said quietly. "I didn't say that," I replied calmly. "But I will protect what's mine." He lowered his head. "I just want peace, Mom. You can't have peace when someone is destroying your home," I said softly. Before he could reply, Danielle stormed downstairs. "You're trying to break this family. You're twisting everything." I looked straight at her. "I'm just protecting myself." Her face tightened, fear flashing behind her anger. She left the room without another word. That night I heard them arguing again. Loud. Intense. Nothing peaceful about it. Around 1 a.m. Robert knocked on my door. Quietly, like a child ashamed of something he couldn't undo. "Mom, she said if I defend you, she'll leave me." I looked at him carefully. "And what do you want, Robert?" He closed his eyes. "I don't know." That answer told me everything. The next day, something happened that changed the direction of this entire story. I was watering the roses when a man appeared near the front gate. Tall, sharp eyes, black jacket. He wasn't walking by, he was watching the house, staring at it like he knew every corner. He pulled out his phone and spoke quietly. "I'm here. I saw her. Yet, Danielle is still living here. Yeah, I know she's pregnant. Don't worry. I'll take care of it." My stomach dropped. Danielle? Who was he talking about? Why did he say he'd take care of it? Before I could step forward, he hung up and drove away. I stood frozen. That man wasn't random. He knew Danielle. He knew about the baby. And the look in his eyes. It wasn't love. It was something darker. And in that moment I understood. My problems weren't just inside the house anymore. They were coming from the outside too. And whatever Danielle was hiding was much bigger and far more dangerous than I imagined. The morning after that disastrous dinner, the house felt heavier than ever. No one spoke to me. Danielle avoided eye contact. Her parents whispered in the kitchen. Robert left early, pretending to be busy with work. But the tension in the air, it was almost visible. I stayed silent too. Silence has power. And now I wasn't the weak one in the room anymore. By noon I picked up my purse and walked out. Danielle rushed after me, her voice trembling. "Where are you going?" I didn't even look at her. "For a walk." She watched me like she feared I might pull the ground out from under her feet. She wasn't wrong. I went straight to my lawyer again. We reviewed more documents, insurance accounts, the old property files. Everything pointed to one truth. The house was legally mine. Completely. Undeniably. And there was not a single piece of paper that said otherwise. When I came back home, Robert was finally sitting in the living room. He looked exhausted, almost broken. "Mom, we need to talk," he said softly. I stood in front of him, arms folded. He swallowed hard. "Danielle said you're trying to kick us out." I didn't say a word. I know she can be difficult, he whispered. But she's pregnant. And I'm trying to keep this family together. I looked at him long and hard. Which family, Robert? The one you abandoned? Or the one using you? He shut his eyes as if the truth stung too much. Before he could answer, Danielle appeared at the top of the stairs, hands on her hips, her voice sharp as glass. You're manipulating him. You want him to choose you over me. I stared at her. Danielle, I don't need Robert to choose. Life will do it for him. She laughed bitterly. You think you can take everything away from us? You're old. You're alone. You have no one. I stepped closer. Are you sure? For the first time, her confident expression cracked. She turned abruptly and walked away, but her footsteps were shaky. That night, loud arguing echoed from Robert and Danielle's room. Her voice high and shrill. Robert's voice tired and cracking. Around 1 a.m. the argument stopped. A door slammed. Feet pounded down the hallway. Then a soft knock reached the door of the storage room. Mom, Robert whispered. Can I come in? I opened the door. His eyes were red. Mom, she said if I defend you again, she'll leave. I took a slow breath. And what do you want, Robert? He looked at the floor. I don't know. That broke me. Not the rejection. Not the disrespect. But the simple truth. My son had become a man who didn't know what he wanted. The next morning things got worse. While I was in the backyard watering the roses, the same roses my husband planted, someone approached the gate. A tall man. Dark jacket. Stubble. Sharp eyes watching the house with unsettling familiarity. He didn't see me at first. He was staring at the windows, specifically at the master bedroom window. Then he took out his phone, dialed a number and spoke in a low voice. I'm outside. I saw her. She's still living here. Yet, Danielle. Pregnant. But it's complicated. Don't worry. I'll handle it. My heart nearly stopped. Danielle? Who was this man? Why was he talking about her like that? Before I could say a word or step forward, he walked back to his car and drove away. My hands were shaking. I didn't know who he was. I didn't know what he wanted. But one thing was very clear. Danielle had secrets. Big ones. Dangerous ones. Now, someone from her past had returned. Not for her happiness, but for something else. Something she didn't want anyone to know. Something she would do anything to hide. And I suddenly realized, this wasn't just about my house anymore. Or my savings. Or my respect. This was about uncovering the truth. A truth that could tear everything apart. For the next 2 days, the house felt strangely unsettled. Danielle avoided going outside. She kept the curtains closed. She jumped whenever her phone buzzed. And Robert, he pretended not to notice, but the way he quietly watched her told me he sensed something was wrong too. But no one said a word. Silence can hide many secrets, but only for so long. On the third morning, I walked into the kitchen to make tea. Danielle was already there, scrolling her phone nervously. The moment she noticed me, she locked the screen and held the phone close to her chest. Good morning, I said calmly. She forced a smile. Morning. But her eyes, they weren't calm. They were scared. I sat down, stirring my tea, letting the quiet sit between us. Danielle, I finally said softly, is there something you want to tell me? She froze. Completely. What do you mean? She asked, voice slightly shaking. I met her eyes. You've been nervous. You keep checking your phone. Someone was outside the house 2 days ago. He was watching the bedroom window. He mentioned your name on a call. Her face drained of color so fast it was almost frightening. She opened her mouth, but no words came out. Only panic. Just then Robert came downstairs. He sensed the tension immediately. What's going on? Before Danielle could lie, her phone rang loudly, sharply, the sound slicing through the room like a blade. She jumped so hard she dropped it. The screen lit up on the floor. Unknown caller. But the look on her face. She knew exactly who it was. She snatched the phone, silenced it, and stormed toward the stairs. Danielle. Robert called after her. Who was that? It's nothing, she snapped, her voice cracking. I said it's nothing. But it wasn't nothing. Even Robert could see that now. For the first time he looked worried, truly worried. Later that evening, while I was folding laundry in the living room, I overheard Robert and Danielle arguing upstairs. "I saw the caller ID," he yelled. "You've been ignoring that number for days. Who is it?" "Nobody." "Danielle, don't lie to me." There was a loud thud, something slamming against a wall, and then Danielle's voice cracked in fear. "Fine. It's someone I used to know, okay? It's from my past. It doesn't matter anymore." A long pause. Robert's voice softened. "Danielle, is he the father?" Silence. Painful, suffocating silence that filled every corner of the house. When Danielle finally spoke, her voice was barely a whisper. "I don't know." I felt the world tilt around me. Robert shouted something. I couldn't make out the words. Then footsteps thundered down the stairs. He stormed past the living room, grabbed his keys and slammed the front door behind him. Danielle collapsed on the staircase, sobbing, her hands shaking uncontrollably. For a moment, despite everything she had done, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. I walked toward her slowly. "Danielle," I said gently, "who is he?" She looked up, mascara streaked down her cheeks, eyes wild with fear. "I didn't mean for any of this to happen," she whispered. "He wasn't supposed to come back. He wasn't supposed to know." "Know what?" She clutched her stomach instinctively. "That I might be carrying his child." My heart pounded in my chest, but I stayed quiet. "He was obsessed with me," she continued. "Controlling. Dangerous. I left him, blocked him, changed my number. But somehow he found me. He said he wouldn't let me go. He said if I ever loved someone else, he'd..." She stopped, trembling. "He'd what?" I asked. She swallowed hard, eyes filling with terror. "He said he'd take everything from me." In that moment, everything suddenly made sense. The paranoia, the fear, the locked curtains, the unknown number, the man watching the house. She hadn't just married Robert for comfort. She had married him for protection. But her past had found her, and it was coming straight for this house. I took a deep breath and spoke firmly. "Danielle, you need to tell Robert the entire truth." She shook her head violently. "No. If he finds out everything, he'll never forgive me." "If you don't tell him," I said quietly, "the truth will still come out. And when it does, the consequences will be much worse." She buried her face in her hands, sobbing. And right then, as if the universe wanted to make things even worse, there was a loud knock at the door. Not polite, not gentle. A heavy, forceful knock that made Danielle freeze. I walked toward the door slowly, but before I could reach it, a voice came from outside. A deep, cold voice. "I know she's in there." Danielle gasped. The knock came again, louder this time. "Open the door." I glanced back. Danielle was standing halfway down the stairs, trembling so hard she could barely breathe. And suddenly, I realized the truth. This story was no longer just about disrespect, family, or money. It had turned into something far bigger. Something dangerous. And I was standing right in the middle of it. The knocking didn't stop. Each slam shook the door harder, like someone trying not just to be heard, but to be let in by force. Danielle stood frozen on the stairs, her hands gripping the railing so tightly her knuckles turned white. Her eyes were wide, terrified, silently begging me not to open the door. But if I didn't, he would break it down. Another violent knock. "Danielle," the man's voice cut through the silence. "I said open the door." She let out a small broken cry. I took a slow breath, steadied myself, and stepped forward. I unlocked the door. Not all the way, only the chain, and opened it just enough to see him clearly. The same man I had seen watching the house. The one in the black jacket. Tall, intense eyes, jaw clenched, breathing hard. Everything about him radiated danger. His eyes snapped to mine. "Where is she?" I stood firm. "She doesn't want to speak to you." He leaned closer, his voice low and threatening. "That's not your decision." Before I could respond, Danielle suddenly screamed from behind me. "Go away, Ethan. Just go." So now I knew his name, Ethan. His eyes ignited with anger the moment he heard her voice. He tried pushing the door, but the security chain stopped him. "Danielle," he shouted. "You think you can hide behind these people? You think you can lie to me?" "I didn't lie to you," she cried. "I left because you wouldn't let me live." Ethan's expression twisted, hurt mixed with rage. "You left because you're selfish," he growled. "And now you're carrying my child and pretending it's his?" He pointed past me toward the house. Danielle's knees buckled. She sat on the staircase, sobbing uncontrollably. I turned back to Ethan. "You need to leave. Now." He glared at me, a cold, chilling glare. "Stay out of this," he said. "This is between me and her." "No," I replied calmly. "It's not. She's pregnant. She's unstable. You're scaring her." "Good," he said. "She should be scared." My heart dropped. This man wasn't just angry, he was dangerous. And then things got worse. Behind me, the front door opened suddenly. Robert walked in. He froze when he saw Ethan. Ethan froze when he saw Robert. Silence. Heavy. Tense. Robert looked from me to Danielle to the man at the door. "Who the hell are you?" he demanded. Ethan smirked. "You must be the replacement." Robert's face drained of color. "What did you just say?" he whispered. Danielle crawled down 2 steps. "Robert, please, not here, not like this." But Ethan stepped closer to the door. Eyes locked on Robert. "She didn't tell you," he said. "She didn't tell you she was living with me before she met you? That she was pregnant when she left? That she—" "Stop!" Danielle screamed, covering her ears. But Ethan didn't stop. "You married a woman who lied to you from day one," he said coldly. "And that baby? Chances are it's mine." Robert stumbled back as if someone punched him in the stomach. I reached for him, but he pulled away and stared at Danielle, eyes broken, shaking. "Is it true?" he whispered. Danielle was sobbing so hard she couldn't form words. Ethan laughed under his breath. Robert snapped. He lunged forward and ripped the door open so hard the chain broke. He rushed at Ethan with pure rage. "You stay away from my family." Ethan shoved him back. "You don't even know if it is your family." Robert swung his fist. It landed squarely on Ethan's jaw. Ethan stumbled back, touched the blood on his lip and smiled. That smile chilled me. "You want to fight?" Ethan said. "Fine." He lunged at Robert, grabbing his collar, slamming him into the doorframe. Danielle screamed. I tried to pull Ethan back, but he shoved me away, not hard but enough to scare me. Robert fought him off, and the 2 men tumbled onto the porch. "Stop it!" Danielle cried. "Please stop." But they didn't. They kept fighting, punching, pushing, grabbing, until Robert slipped on the edge of the porch and fell hard onto the ground. Ethan stood over him, breathing heavily. "Stay out of our lives," he said. "Or I swear." "You swear what?" Danielle screamed from the doorway. Ethan looked up. She had stepped outside, standing shakily on the top step. "If you don't walk away right now," she said, her voice breaking but brave, "I will call the police and tell them everything you did. Everything. Every threat. Every time you grabbed me. Every bruise you left. Everything you made me hide." Ethan froze. For the first time he looked afraid. "Danielle," he said quietly. "You wouldn't." "I would," she whispered. "And I will." A long, tense silence followed. Ethan looked at all of us, me, Robert, Danielle, one by one. Then he stepped back. "This isn't over," he muttered. He turned, walked to his car and drove away. The street fell silent. Danielle collapsed to her knees, sobbing uncontrollably. Robert sat on the ground, shaking, staring at nothing. I stood between them, feeling the weight of 1,000 storms pressing down at once. And for the first time, I realized this family had shattered completely. Nothing could go back to normal now. Not after this. Not after him. And yet a part of me knew. The worst wasn't over. Not even close. The house was silent for nearly an hour after Ethan drove away. Not peaceful silence, the heavy kind, thick with fear and shame. Danielle sat curled on the floor near the staircase, trembling. Robert remained outside on the porch step, staring blankly at his shaking hands. I stood in the doorway watching both of them, unsure who needed help first. Finally, I walked out to Robert. He didn't look up when I sat beside him. His breathing was uneven, almost childlike. "Mom," he whispered. "I've been such a fool." The pain in his voice cut through me. "You trusted someone you loved," I said gently. "That isn't foolish." He shook his head violently. "No, I didn't protect you. I didn't listen. I chose her over you every single time. I let her treat you like nothing. I let her throw your things out. I made you stay in that storage room like you were unwanted." His voice cracked. I placed a hand on his shoulder. "Robert, what happened today wasn't your fault. You didn't know." "But I should have," he whispered. "You were hurting right in front of me." He finally looked up at me, eyes red, full of guilt. "My son. My baby. The little boy who once held my hand crossing the street." "Mom," he said slowly. "I'm so sorry." I felt tears form, but I pushed them back. This moment wasn't for crying. It was for truth. "You're still my son," I whispered. "And I'm still here." Before either of us could say more, police sirens echoed from down the street. Danielle must have called them after all. 2 officers approached the porch. One spoke to Robert, the other stepped inside to speak with Danielle. She was still trembling, her voice shaky but honest. They asked her questions. Name, prior relationship with Ethan, past threats, the fight that just happened. When the officers were done, one of them pulled me aside. "Ma'am," he said quietly, "based on her statement, that man has a history. We already have a few reports connected to him." I felt a chill. What kind of reports? Possessiveness, harassment, threats. He lowered his voice. "Multiple." I swallowed hard. The officer continued. "If he returns, call us immediately. We'll patrol the area tonight just in case." When they left, the house felt heavier but at least safer. Robert finally came back inside. Danielle sat on the couch, knees pulled to her chest, face pale and tired. For a moment no one spoke. Then Robert said quietly, "We need to talk." Danielle didn't look at him. "Danielle," he said again, this time firmer. She wiped her eyes and looked up. "What Ethan said, is any of it true?" She didn't answer immediately. She closed her eyes, exhaled slowly. "Yes," she finally whispered. Robert flinched like someone had stabbed him. She continued, "I met you when I had just run away from him. I didn't tell you because I thought he'd never find me. I thought if I got married he'd stop looking. I wanted a normal life. A safe one." "How long were you with him?" Robert asked quietly. "A year," she whispered. "But it felt like 10. He was controlling. He monitored my phone, my friends, everything. I finally escaped, but, Robert pressed. She took a long breath. "I found out I was pregnant a month before I met you." Everything froze. Robert stared at her, completely shattered, trying to breathe. "And you didn't think I deserved to know?" he whispered. Tears spilled down her cheeks. "I was scared," she said. "I thought if you found out, you'd leave me, and he would find me again. I thought marrying you was the only way to stay safe." Robert closed his eyes, holding his forehead as if trying to stop the world from spinning. Danielle broke down completely. "I didn't mean to hurt you," she cried. "I didn't want this to happen. I just wanted to feel loved." Robert whispered one sentence that sliced through the room like a blade. "I don't even know who you are anymore." He stood up and walked toward the bedroom, shutting the door behind him. Danielle sobbed harder. I sat beside her. She looked up at me, broken, terrified, exhausted. "Carol, please don't hate me." I took a deep breath. "I don't hate you," I said honestly. "But you destroyed a lot. And now you need to fix it." She nodded, wiping her tears. Then she whispered something I didn't expect. "Carol, I'm scared he'll come back." I looked at her trembling hands. "He will," I said softly. "People like him don't disappear easily. But next time you won't face him alone." She cried again, not out of guilt this time but relief. For the first time she looked at me not as competition, but as someone she desperately needed. As I stood up to leave, I glanced toward the closed bedroom door where Robert was hiding his heartbreak. This family was falling apart, But maybe, just maybe, something new could be rebuilt. But deep down, one thing was clear. Ethan was not gone, and his return would not be peaceful. The next 2 days felt like walking on thin glass. Every step careful, every sound alarming, every knock on the door enough to make all of us freeze. Robert barely spoke. Danielle barely slept. And I barely let them out of my sight. The police patrolled the street at night, but even that didn't ease the tension. Fear has a way of settling inside the walls. It doesn't leave easily. On the third evening, something unexpected happened. Robert came out of the bedroom with a small duffel bag in his hand. His eyes were tired, but calmer, like a man who had finally made a decision after too much pain. "I'm going to stay with a friend for a few days," he said. Danielle's face fell. "Robert, please don't leave me alone right now," she whispered, rushing toward him. He held up a hand gently. "I'm not leaving you. I'm just giving myself space. I need to think. I need to breathe. I can't make any decisions while I feel like my entire world is collapsing." Her lips trembled. "Robert, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." He closed his eyes, fighting back emotion. "I know. But sorry doesn't fix everything." Danielle sobbed and hugged him, but he didn't hug back right away. When he finally did, it was soft and sad, like someone holding a memory instead of a person. He kissed her forehead, then walked past me. "Mom, please keep an eye on her," he said quietly. "I will," I replied. And just like that, he left. Danielle shut the door behind him and slid down to the floor, crying silently. I wanted to comfort her, but something inside me told me to keep a little distance. She had lied, but she had also suffered. That night, I stayed in the living room instead of going to the storage room. I wanted to make sure Danielle wasn't alone. Around midnight, she walked in slowly, her eyes swollen. "Carol, can I sit with you for a minute?" she whispered. I nodded. She sat beside me on the couch, hugging her knees. "I know you don't owe me anything," she said. "But I want to tell you the rest, the part one never told anyone." I stayed quiet, letting her speak. "When I met Ethan, he was charming. He treated me like I was the only woman in the world. But after a few months, everything changed. He didn't want me to have friends. He didn't want me talking to anyone. He would check my phone, follow me to work, accuse me of cheating even if I smiled at a stranger." Her voice trembled. "One night he pushed me hard. Then he apologized and cried. I forgave him. It happened again. And again. Eventually, I left." She wiped her cheek. "When I met Robert, he was gentle, safe. I thought marrying him would keep Ethan away. I thought if I built a new life fast enough, the old one wouldn't catch me." I listened quietly. "And now everything is falling apart," she whispered. "Robert hates me. Ethan wants control again. And you have every reason to despise me." I looked at her, really looked at her. Danielle wasn't just guilty. She was drowning in fear. She needed strength. And the truth was, I needed to be strong too. "Danielle," I said softly, "I don't hate you. But you must stop hiding things. Secrets don't protect families, they destroy them." She nodded weakly. And that's when it happened. A loud thud outside. Then another. Danielle froze. Her eyes widened with terror. "Carol, someone's outside," she whispered. I stood up slowly and walked toward the front window. I moved the curtain just an inch and peeked outside. A shadowy figure was standing by the mailbox. Tall. Still. Watching the house. Danielle rushed to my side, gripping my arm tightly. "It's him," she whispered, shaking. "It's Ethan." My breath caught. Before I could react, my phone buzzed in my hand. A message. From an unknown number. "Tell her to come outside. We need to talk." My blood went cold. I showed Danielle the message. Her face went pale instantly. No, he knows you're here. He knows Robert left. He knows I'm alone." She backed away from the window, breathing fast, tears running down her face. "He's not going to leave unless I go out there," she whispered. "He never leaves." I held her shoulders firmly. "You are not going outside." She shook her head, panicking. "He'll break in. He'll hurt someone. He'll do something crazy." Before I could argue, another message came. "If you don't come out, I will." Danielle let out a terrified sob. "We need to call Robert," she cried. I grabbed my phone and dialed him immediately. He answered on the second ring. "Mom? Is everything okay?" "No," I said quickly. "Robert, you need to come home. Now." "What happened?" "He's here," I whispered. "Ethan." There was a long pause. Then Robert's voice changed sharp, urgent, protective. "I'm on my way." He hung up. Outside, Ethan began walking toward the house. Slowly, purposefully, like a man who had all the time in the world. Danielle cried harder. "Carol, please don't let him take me." I didn't know what was going to happen next. I didn't know if Robert would make it in time. I didn't know if the police would show up before something terrible happened. All I knew was this. Ethan wasn't just here to talk. He was here to take back control. And he wasn't leaving without a fight. Ethan didn't rush. That was the most terrifying part. He walked toward the house with the slow, steady confidence of someone who believed nothing could stop him. Danielle clung to my arm, trembling so hard I could feel her fear in my own bones. "Carol, he's not going to leave," she whispered. "He never leaves when he wants something." I pulled her back from the window. "Don't go near the door," I said firmly. But even as I said it, a heavy knock shook the house. Not loud, just steady, threatening, as if he was saying, "I'm not going anywhere." Danielle gasped and covered her mouth. Another knock. "Danielle." Ethan's voice came through the door, too calm, too controlled. "Open the door. We need to talk." She shook her head violently. I moved closer to the door but didn't open it. "This is not your house," Ethan said. "You don't get to hide behind someone else's walls." I spoke through the door loud and firm. "Leave. The police have been notified." He laughed. A slow, cold laugh that ran through the whole house like ice water. "I don't care about your police," he said. "I'm here for Danielle." Behind me, Danielle broke down again, her breathing sharp and fast. "He's going to break in," she whispered. "No," I said. "Not while I'm here." I reached for my phone to call the police again, but before I could dial, Ethan pounded the door so hard the frame shook. "Danielle, open the door." She screamed and sank to the floor, covering her ears. I grabbed a chair and locked it under the doorknob for extra support, but Ethan hit the door again, harder. He wasn't going to wait anymore. Outside I heard footsteps, fast ones, coming from the driveway. Then a voice yelled, "Get away from the door. Robert." He sprinted toward the porch like a man possessed. In a split second, Ethan spun around. Robert tackled him, slamming him into the wooden railing so hard it shook. "You don't get to come to my house," Robert shouted. Ethan shoved him back. "You think this is your house? She never loved you. She was always mine." Robert lunged again, punching him across the face. Ethan stumbled but stayed on his feet, grabbing Robert's shirt and throwing him against the wall. They were going at each other with a rage I had never seen before, wild, desperate, primal. "Stop!" Danielle cried from inside the house. "Please stop." But neither man stopped. Robert hit Ethan again, this time hard enough to make him fall to one knee. For a moment everything went still. Ethan slowly wiped the blood from his lip and looked up at Robert with a twisted smile. "You want the truth?" he said, breathing heavily. "She was with me the night before she married you." Danielle screamed in agony. Robert staggered back, stunned, broken all over again. Ethan stood up, his voice taunting, poisonous. "And guess what? She told me she wasn't sure if." Before he could finish, Danielle ran out the door and stood between them. "Stop it!" she screamed. "Stop talking. Stop fighting. Stop all of it." Tears streamed down her face as she looked from Ethan to Robert, each of them breathing hard, fists clenched. "You don't own me," she screamed at Ethan. "You don't get to destroy my life again. You don't get to control me." Ethan's face twisted with anger. "I made you," he shouted. "Everything you are." "And oh," she shrieked, "I am done being scared of you." She was shaking violently, but she didn't move. She stood her ground, desperate, broken, brave. Robert stepped behind her, placing a protective hand on her shoulder. "Stay away from her," Robert said, voice low and deadly. "If you ever come near her again, I will bury you. Ethan looked at both of them, breathing hard, eyes burning. Then he pointed at Danielle, his voice cold. This isn't over. He turned and stormed toward his car. But just as he reached the driver's door, flashing lights appeared at the end of the street. A police car. Another behind it. Ethan froze. The officer stepped out and shouted, "Sir, hands where we can see them." Ethan swore under his breath and tried to get into the car. But the police moved fast. Within seconds they had him pinned against the hood, handcuffing him as he struggled and cursed. Danielle collapsed to her knees on the porch, sobbing uncontrollably. Robert knelt beside her, holding her tightly. "It's okay," he whispered. "It's okay. You're safe now. I've got you." And for the first time in days I saw something in his eyes. Not confusion, not guilt, not anger, but clarity. The police carried Ethan into the patrol car and drove away. The moment he was out of sight, Danielle broke down completely, crying into Robert's chest. Robert held her gently, carefully, not out of forgiveness, not yet, but out of love, pain, and a desperate need to keep her safe. I stood behind them on the porch, the night finally quiet again. But deep inside I knew one thing. Ethan may be gone for now, but the storm he brought into this house had changed everything forever. The police cars had barely turned the corner when the weight of everything finally hit Danielle. She tried to stand, but her legs gave out. Robert caught her instantly. "Easy, it's okay. I've got you," he whispered. But she wasn't okay. Her breathing turned sharp and fast. Her hands trembled uncontrollably. Her face had gone completely pale. "Carol," Robert called out urgently. "Something's wrong." I knelt beside her. "Danielle, look at me. Breathe." Slowly. She tried, but it wasn't working. Her breaths came shorter, quicker, desperate. "Panic attack." "Robert, call an ambulance," I said. "No," Danielle cried weakly. "No hospital, please." "You need help," I said firmly. "You're pregnant. We're not taking chances." Robert hesitated only for a second before pulling out his phone. Within minutes, an ambulance arrived. 2 paramedics rushed up the porch steps and gently lifted Danielle to her feet. Her eyes were wide with fear. She kept gripping Robert's hand like she was holding on to life itself. "Please don't leave me," she whispered. "I'm right here," he replied, voice steady for the first time in days. They helped her into the ambulance. Robert climbed in beside her. Before the doors closed, he looked at me. "Mom, come with us. Please." That one word, please, told me everything. He needed me. I followed them in my car. At the hospital, Danielle was taken into an exam room while Robert and I waited outside. He sat beside me, elbows on his knees, hands clasped tightly. "Mom," he whispered. "What if the baby isn't mine?" I looked at him carefully. "Robert, a child is never responsible for the mistakes of adults." He didn't look up. "But how do I live with that? How do I love something that might belong to?" He swallowed the name like poison. "Him." I placed a hand on his back. "You're asking the wrong question," I said softly. "What you should ask is, can you love the child because it needs you? Not because of who created it." Robert finally lifted his head. His eyes were filled with something I hadn't seen in a long time. Strength. "Mom, I don't know what I feel anymore," he whispered. "I just know I don't want to lose her." Before I could respond, a doctor walked out. "Family of Danielle?" We both stood up immediately. "She's stable," the doctor said. "But she was under severe emotional distress. We've calmed her down. She's resting now." Robert let out a shaky breath of relief. "But," the doctor continued, "we also ran a few routine tests because of her pregnancy." My heart tightened. "And?" Robert asked. The doctor looked around to make sure no one was listening. "We found elevated stress markers and blood pressure spikes. She's been under extreme emotional pressure for a long time." He paused. "It's a miracle nothing worse has happened." Robert's face fell. The doctor continued softly. "Whoever has been threatening or hurting her, you need to keep her away from him. This kind of stress isn't safe for her or the baby." I exchanged a glance with Robert. We both knew who he meant. After the doctor left, Robert sank into the chair again. "This is all my fault," he murmured. "If I hadn't—" He stopped, choking on the words. "No," I said firmly. "This started long before you. Danielle has been running from him for years. You didn't cause this." He looked up at me, eyes filled with tears he was trying hard to hold back. "Mom, what do I do now?" There was only one answer. "You protect her," I said. "And you protect yourself. Whatever happens next, we face it together." For the first time in weeks, Robert took my hand. But just as that moment settled, an officer approached us. "Robert Collins?" "Yes," Robert said. The officer held a small notebook. "We questioned the man who was arrested. Ethan Gray." Robert stiffened. The officer continued. "He said something interesting." "What did he say?" Robert asked. "He claimed he has proof the baby is his." Danielle's earlier words thundered back into my mind. "I don't know." My stomach dropped. The officer continued. "He insists Danielle contacted him after she got married. Claims she asked him for money. Claims he has messages." Robert's eyes widened with shock. "What?" "That's a lie," he said immediately. "We're not saying it's true," the officer replied. "But we're checking everything. And until we finish our investigation, Ethan might be released." My heart stopped. "What?" Robert shouted. "He attacked me. He came to our house. He threatened her." "Yes," the officer said. "But he's arguing that he was trying to help her. He's spinning the narrative." Robert clenched his fists. The officer continued. "Be very careful. He may be out on bail by tomorrow." Robert sank into the chair again, devastated. The officer left, and for a long moment neither of us spoke. Then Robert whispered something I never expected. "Mom, I can't take her back to the house. Not after this. It's not safe." He looked at me slowly, hopefully, like a little boy asking for shelter from a storm. "Can she stay with us?" he asked softly. "Just until we know what's happening?" My breath caught. After everything she had done, after every wrong turn, after the disrespect, the lies, the chaos, I looked through the small window in the door, where Danielle lay sleeping with her hand resting gently over her stomach, broken, terrified, trying to survive. And I realized something. No matter what she had done, no one deserved to face a monster alone. "Yes," I said quietly. "She can stay." Robert let out a breath he didn't know he was holding. But deep down, I also knew something else. Letting Danielle stay with us was the right thing to do. But it was also the decision that would bring the biggest storm yet. Because Ethan wasn't just angry. He wasn't just jealous. He wasn't just obsessed. He was planning something. Something bigger. Something worse. And we were about to walk right into it. By the time Danielle was discharged from the hospital, the sky outside had already darkened into a deep, heavy blue. The kind of night that feels like it's holding its breath. Robert walked beside her, holding her gently as if she might break. I followed closely, watching everything, every shadow, every corner of the parking lot, every car that slowed down. Fear changes a person. And after the officer's warning that Ethan might be released on bail, none of us were the same. When we reached the car, Danielle hesitated. "Carol, are you sure it's okay if I stay with you?" Her voice was small, uncertain. "Yes," I said softly. "You're safer with us." She nodded, swallowing hard. The drive home was tense, silent. Robert kept checking the rearview mirror every few seconds. Danielle kept her hands on her stomach, almost protectively. And I kept watching the road ahead, my mind racing. We pulled into the driveway and looked around carefully. No strange cars. No shadows. No movement. Still something felt off. We helped Danielle inside. I made her some warm tea and settled her on the couch with a blanket. Robert sat close to her, quieter than usual. "Do you want to sleep in the guest room?" I asked. Danielle hesitated. Can I sleep in your room, Robert? Just tonight." He nodded. "Of course." But the moment she stood up, her phone vibrated. She froze. Robert stiffened. I moved closer. "Who is it?" I asked. Her hand shook as she turned the phone around. Unknown number. One new message. Robert grabbed the phone gently from her hand and opened it. There were only 3 words. You think I'm done? My blood ran cold. Danielle covered her mouth, trying not to cry. Robert clenched the phone so hard I thought it might break. He can't be out already, Robert said, voice shaking. He can't. But before I could answer, headlights suddenly appeared outside the front window, bright, sharp, cutting through the darkness. A car had pulled into the street. It didn't stop at our house. Didn't honk. Just sat there in the road facing us. Watching. Danielle gripped Robert's arm. Robert, it's him, she whispered. No, I said quickly. We can't assume that. But deep down in my bones I knew. The car engine stayed running, headlights on, unmoving. Robert walked to the window and stood there, tense, breathing hard. After what felt like an eternity, the car finally drove off. Slowly, quietly, like whoever was driving wasn't in a hurry. Danielle collapsed onto the couch. He's playing with us, she whispered. He wants to scare me. He wants me to run. Robert knelt in front of her. You're not running. Not anymore. Not from him. For the first time since everything started, Danielle reached for his hand. Robert, I don't deserve your kindness, she sobbed. I lied to you. I ruined your family. Robert cut her off softly. I'm angry, Danielle. I'm hurt. I'm confused. But right now none of that matters. I just want you safe. Tears streamed down her face. He's not going to stop, she whispered. He never stops. I sat beside them. Then we prepare, I said calmly. We don't panic. We protect each other. But before we could say more, Robert's phone buzzed. A text message. From an unknown number. He opened it, and his face drained of color. What is it? I asked. He turned the phone to me. A photo. A photo taken from outside the house. From the street. Facing our living room window. And inside the photo, you could see us. Me on the couch. Danielle with her blanket. Robert in front of her. The message underneath the picture said, I see everything. Danielle screamed and covered her face. Robert grabbed the nearest chair and slammed it against the wall in rage. This ends now, he roared. I felt my knees weaken, but I didn't let it show. Because something was very clear. Ethan wasn't hiding. He wasn't running. He wasn't afraid. He was watching us, tracking us, studying us. And if he had taken that picture, it meant only one thing. He was close. Very close. Closer than we ever imagined. I looked around the room, suddenly feeling the walls closing in. We weren't safe here anymore. Not as long as he was free. And in that moment, something dark dawned on me. Maybe bringing Danielle home wasn't protecting her. Maybe it was inviting danger straight into our house. For the rest of that night, no one slept. Danielle stayed close to Robert, clinging to his arm like a frightened child. Robert paced back and forth across the living room, checking through every window, every curtain, every lock. And I sat silently on the edge of the couch, watching the shadows outside shifting under the streetlights. Every sound made us jump. Every car passing by felt suspicious. Every creak of the house felt like a warning. Around 3 a.m., things finally quieted down a little. Danielle was exhausted and fell asleep on Robert's shoulder. He gently carried her to the guest room. We didn't want them sleeping where the photo was taken. After tucking her in, he returned to the living room and sat next to me. Mom, he whispered. What if he gets inside? I placed a hand on his arm. He won't. We're alert. We're together. But deep down, I wasn't sure. Ethan was unpredictable. He was smart. And most terrifyingly, he knew Danielle better than any of us. Robert exhaled shakily. I've never been this scared, he admitted. Not even when Dad died. This feels different. Like something bad is coming. I didn't deny it. Instead, I said the only thing that mattered. We face it together. Morning came slowly, gray and heavy. Danielle finally woke up around 10 a.m., looking drained and weak. She moved like someone carrying the weight of 2 lifetimes, the one she escaped and the one she ruined. Robert made her breakfast, but she barely ate. She kept glancing at the windows, the doors, the hallway, as if expecting Ethan to appear from any corner. Around noon, the doorbell rang. We all froze. Danielle's fork dropped from her hand. "Don't move," Robert whispered. He approached the door slowly, looking through the peephole. Then he sighed with relief. "It's just the police." I exhaled for the first time in minutes. Robert opened the door. 2 officers stood there, the same ones from last night. "Good morning," one said. "We have an update regarding Ethan Gray." We let them inside. "What happened?" Robert asked immediately. "Is he still in custody?" The officer hesitated. My stomach tightened. "He was released on bail at 7 a.m. Robert's fists clenched instantly. Danielle gasped, clutching her stomach. "What?" she cried. "He attacked us. He threatened me. Yes, the officer said carefully. But he posted bail. And he has a lawyer who claims he has evidence suggesting Danielle may have been in contact with him voluntarily." Robert stepped forward, furious. "That's impossible. She's been hiding from him for months." The officer continued. "We're investigating. But there's more." My heart thudded. "More?" I asked. The officer nodded. "He didn't go home after being released." Robert narrowed his eyes. "Where did he go?" The officer looked at each of us slowly, seriously. "He drove straight to this neighborhood." Danielle's knees nearly buckled. Robert caught her. "What do you mean, this neighborhood?" I demanded. "Your street," the officer said. "He was spotted here less than an hour ago." Robert's face turned white. "What was he doing?" The officer exchanged a glance with his partner. "We're not sure. He wasn't near your house. He was 2 blocks down. But..." He hesitated again. "He spoke to someone." A cold chill crawled up my spine. "Spoke to who?" I pressed. The officer took out a small notebook. "A neighbor." Danielle's eyes widened. "About what?" The officer read from the notes. Ethan claimed he came to collect his wife, and that she was being held here against her will. I felt the room tilt. Robert choked on his words. "He what?" The officer continued. "He said Danielle married him privately. Or at least, that's what he claimed." Danielle collapsed onto the couch. "That's a lie," she cried. "I never married him. He's trying to trap me." The officer nodded. "We know. But he's telling people the opposite." Robert looked like he was going to explode. "What else did he say?" The officer closed the notebook and looked directly at Danielle. "He also told the neighbor that he was here to take his family back." Danielle's entire body shook. No, he's twisting everything." Robert knelt beside her, but she pushed her hands to her mouth, terrified. "He said something else too," the officer added. We looked up. "He said he wasn't leaving this area until he got what he came for." Silence. Heavy. Crippling. Then the officer said the words that changed everything. "And that's not the worst part." Robert clenched his jaw. What could be worse than that? The officer's next words made the room spin. "Ethan has hired someone." Robert's voice cracked. "Hired someone for what?" The officer looked him dead in the eyes. "To follow you. To monitor your house. And to report back on everyone inside." My breath stopped. Danielle whispered. "Oh my God." Robert whispered. "Who?" The officer answered. "We don't know yet." But then he added one sentence that froze my blood completely. "We suspect it might be someone who already has access to your house." My heart nearly stopped. Someone with access? Someone who had been inside? Someone who knew our routines? My mind raced. There was only one person outside this house who came and went freely. Only one person who knew our schedules, our habits, our routines. Only one person Ethan could manipulate. A neighbor. A gardener. A delivery man. A distant relative. And then suddenly it hit me. A single name. A single face. A person who had been around too much lately. Who asked too many questions. Who noticed too many details. I felt the blood drain from my face. "Carol," Robert said urgently. "What's wrong?" I turned slowly and whispered the name aloud. A name none of us expected. A name that changed everything we thought we knew. The moment the officer said someone with access to the house might be helping Ethan, my mind went numb. Faces flashed in my memory. People who came and went. People who knew our routine. But one face stood out. One person who had been around more than usual lately. Someone who seemed harmless but asked too many questions. I felt my stomach twist. Robert stepped closer. "Mom, who is it?" Danielle wiped her tears, whispering, "Carol. Who do you think it is?" My voice came out barely above a whisper. "Lucy." The room fell silent. Robert blinked in shock. "Our neighbor, Lucy? Ma, she's harmless. She's known us for years." "Yes," I said. "And that's exactly why she's dangerous." Danielle frowned, confused. "What do you mean?" I swallowed hard. The day I came back from Phoenix, Lucy already knew too much. She told me Danielle sold the antique furniture. She knew about Robert's work hours. She knew Danielle's routines. And when the police came last time, she was the first to ask me what happened, even before they spoke to us. Robert slowly sat down, the truth sinking in. "She always walks her dog past the house," I continued. "But lately she's been walking slower. Paying attention. Watching." Danielle's hand flew to her mouth. "Oh my God. I saw her yesterday. She was outside at midnight. I thought she couldn't sleep. But she was on the phone, whispering." Robert's face darkened. Why would Lucy help him? I closed my eyes, remembering something I overheard months ago. "Robert, Lucy told me once that Danielle stole you from someone. I didn't understand it at the time. I thought she was just gossiping." Danielle looked confused. "Stole him? From who?" Then she froze. Her eyes widened slowly, painfully, like a realization hitting her hard. "Oh my God," she whispered. "Ethan." Robert's entire body went still. "He knew Lucy?" he asked sharply. Danielle nodded weakly. "Ethan knew everyone. He watched everything. He tracked me. He learned the names of the neighbors. He even talked to some of them. Lucy, she used to work at a boutique Ethan and I visited. She recognized me when we moved here." It all clicked. "She liked Ethan," Danielle whispered. "She used to flirt with him. He used to brag about how many women wanted him." Robert clenched his fists. "So Lucy is helping him," he said through his teeth. "Lucy, who smiles at us like we're family." "She's not," I said. "She's feeding him information." A sudden loud knock on the door made all of us jump. Danielle gasped. Robert stood up instantly, muscles tense. I held my breath. Another knock. "Mom!" A familiar voice called from outside. "Lucy!" Danielle nearly fainted. Robert whispered urgently, "Don't open it." The knocking continued. "Carol? Are you home?" Lucy called gently. "I brought you some muffins." Her tone sounded sweet, too sweet. Robert stepped close to the door and whispered, "She's testing if we're inside." Danielle backed away, shaking violently. "He asked her to check on us. He wants to know if I'm alone." We stayed silent. Lucy knocked again, longer this time. "Carol, I know you're there. I saw Robert's car." Robert cursed under his breath. "She's watching us," he whispered. "She's reporting everything." A moment later, her voice dropped lower and colder. "You can't hide her forever." Danielle gasped so loudly that Robert covered her mouth gently. We froze. Lucy's shadow lingered behind the frosted glass. Then footsteps faded. We waited for a full minute. 2 minutes. 3. Finally, Robert peeked through the peephole. "She's gone," he whispered. Danielle collapsed onto the couch, sobbing. "She's helping him. She's telling him everything. I'm never going to be safe." Robert sat beside her and pulled her into his arms. "Yes, you will," he said softly. "Because now we know who we're dealing with." I checked the locks again. All secure. But one thing was clear. Ethan wasn't acting alone. He had eyes in our neighborhood. Eyes we trusted. Eyes that smiled at us every day. I turned to Robert. "We need to tell the police about Lucy." "Yes," he said firmly. We're not letting anyone get close again. But then something strange happened. Danielle suddenly stopped crying. Her face changed. Not fear, but realization. Wait, she whispered. There's something else. Something I didn't tell you. Robert looked confused. What? Danielle hesitated, then spoke slowly. Before Ethan came to the house that night, someone texted me from an unknown number. Robert stiffened. What message? Danielle swallowed hard. It said, "He knows." My heart dropped. Robert asked, Who? Who knows what? Danielle whispered. That wasn't Ethan's number. It was a different number. Someone else messaged me before he arrived. She looked up at us terrified. Which means, Ethan isn't the only one after me. Robert stared at her in shock. I felt a cold chill run down my spine. Danielle continued shakily. Lucy isn't the only one helping him. Robert stood up slowly. Then who else is involved? Danielle whispered the words that changed everything. I think someone else wants the baby. Danielle's words hung in the air like a dark cloud. I think someone else wants the baby. Robert stepped back as if he'd been physically hit. What are you talking about? He demanded. Who else would want your baby? Danielle shook her head helplessly. I don't know. But someone else was messaging me. Someone besides Ethan. Someone who knew things only a person close to us could know. I felt a cold shiver slide down my spine. Danielle, what did those messages say? I asked gently. She reached for her phone with trembling hands and opened her messages. Her thumb hovered over a thread labeled unknown to. She turned the screen so we could see. The messages were chilling. Unknown to. You're safer with me. Unknown to. You don't have to raise the baby alone. Unknown to. He doesn't deserve to be the father. Unknown to. I can give your child a better life. Robert's face turned to stone. Danielle, he whispered, voice shaking with anger and disbelief. Why didn't you show me this sooner? Danielle broke down. I was scared. I thought it was Ethan at first, but the tone was different. It didn't sound like him. It sounded calmer, controlled. Like someone pretending to care. I read through the messages again, slowly, carefully. The wording wasn't obsessive or violent like Ethan. This was calculated. Someone who wanted something specific. Someone patient. Someone confident. Someone who believed they had a right to step in. Robert took the phone from her hand and scrolled. Then he froze. What? I asked. He pointed to the most recent message, the one sent 20 minutes ago. Unknown to. You're not safe in that house. Robert stared at us, horrified. They know where she is. They know she's here. Danielle covered her mouth, trembling violently. This is like a nightmare, she whispered. How many people are after me? The knock on the door earlier. Lucy's voice. The dark car watching our house. The picture taken from outside. This wasn't one enemy. This was something deeper. Bigger. Robert paced the room. It doesn't make sense, he muttered. Why would anyone else want the baby? Why would anyone care? Danielle hesitated. I think, she began slowly, I think it might have something to do with my past. Robert spun around. What past? Danielle's eyes filled with guilt. There are things I never told you. The room went silent. Robert's voice cracked. What are you talking about? Danielle took a deep breath. When I left Ethan, it wasn't just him I was running from. My heart pounded. Danielle continued, voice breaking. I used to work at a private clinic. And I discovered something. Something illegal. Something dangerous. Robert froze, completely blindsided. What do you mean? Danielle wiped her tears. Ethan was involved. So were some very powerful people. And when I tried to expose it, they threatened me. Told me I'd regret it. I thought they forgot about me when I left town. She shook her head slowly. But they didn't. Robert was stunned. Danielle, what illegal thing? What did you find? Danielle whispered. They were selling patient information. Women's data. Pregnancy records. Contact details. They were matching infants to high-paying clients. My blood ran cold. What? I whispered. They ran a ring, Danielle said weakly. A secret adoption for profit operation. Robert nearly collapsed. And Ethan? I asked quietly. He recruited women, Danielle said. He manipulated them, controlled them, and when I found out, I left. Tears streamed down her cheeks. I didn't know I was pregnant then, but someone at the clinic must have accessed my medical file after I left. Saw I was expecting, and now they think I'm trying to hide the baby from them. Robert stared at her, speechless. And Ethan? I asked. He wasn't after me, Danielle whispered. Not really. She looked up with terror in her eyes. He was after the baby. The truth hit like a punch. The strange text messages. Unknown watchers. Lucy spying. The photo of us taken from outside. This wasn't just obsession. This was a plan. A business. A ring. A criminal network. I took a shaky breath. Danielle. Does anyone else know your baby exists? She nodded slowly. The clinic. Ethan. And whoever runs that operation. Robert felt sick. So they think your baby is worth something. Danielle sobbed. He told people I owed him a child. He told clients I ran away with their future baby. He promised them a newborn. Robert grabbed the edge of the table to keep himself standing. Oh my God. Then Danielle whispered the words that made the entire house go silent. They want my baby because they already sold it. A long, terrifying silence swallowed the room. And then, a loud crash came from the back of the house. Danielle screamed. Robert jumped to his feet. My heart nearly stopped. We froze, listening. Then came another noise. A slow, heavy knock on the back door. 3 times. Deliberate. Slow. Calculated. Robert whispered. Mom. Someone is in the backyard. Danielle covered her stomach, crying silently. I turned toward the back of the house and saw a shadow moving past the kitchen window. Tall. Still. Watching. Not Ethan. Someone else. Someone we didn't know. Someone who wanted something far more dangerous. And for the first time since this nightmare started, I realized we weren't dealing with one monster. We were dealing with an entire organization. And they had just found us. The knock at the back door echoed through the house like a pulse. 3 slow knocks. Like someone wasn't trying to break in, but trying to announce themselves. Robert motioned for Danielle to stay behind him. I moved closer, my heart beating so hard it hurt. Another shadow swept across the window, taller than Ethan, broader, moving with confidence. This wasn't a man trying to hide. This was someone who knew he belonged here or believed he did. Robert grabbed the nearest heavy object, a metal lamp, and took slow steps toward the kitchen. Mom, call 911, he whispered. But before I could, a voice came from the other side of the door. Calm, deep, and terrifyingly composed. Danielle. I know you're inside. Danielle's entire body froze. Robert turned pale. The voice continued. Open the door. We need to talk. You know who I am. Danielle grabbed my hand, trembling violently. No, 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 she whispered. He found me. Robert whispered sharply. Who is that? Danielle didn't answer immediately. Her lips were shaking so hard she couldn't form words. The man outside tried again. Danielle. I'm not here to hurt you, but the longer you wait, the worse this gets. Robert snapped. I'm calling the police, he yelled. Silence. Then the voice said, Go ahead. They already know who I am. Something about that sentence chilled my blood. Men who fear the police don't talk like that. Men who work with the police talk like that. Or men who are protected by someone powerful. Robert pulled Danielle toward the hallway. Tell me who he is, he demanded. Danielle swallowed hard. His name is Martin. Robert blinked. Who the hell is Martin? She took a breath so shaky it looked like it might break her ribs. He was Ethan's boss. At the clinic. Everything inside me went still. Boss. Robert repeated. You mean? Danielle nodded weakly. He runs the operation. The adoption ring. The illegal network. All of it. Robert stared at her in horror. You're telling me the man outside our door is the leader of a criminal organization? Danielle closed her eyes. Yes. Robert cursed under his breath, gripping his hair. I moved to the kitchen door as quietly as possible and peered through a slit in the curtain. What I saw made my entire body go cold. A tall man in a perfectly tailored black coat stood in my backyard, hands clasped behind his back. He wasn't panicking. He wasn't hiding. He wasn't even looking around. He was simply waiting. Like he had all the time in the world. He looked powerful. Dangerously calm. This wasn't Ethan's chaos. This was structure. Authority. Control. He lifted his head slightly and looked directly at the window I was peeking through, as if he already knew where I stood. I dropped the curtain instinctively. "Mom," Robert whispered. "What is it?" I swallowed hard. "He's not like Ethan," I whispered. "He's much worse." Suddenly, Martin's voice cut through the silence again. "Danielle, let me remind you." His tone shifted. Colder, sharper, almost surgical. "You signed a confidentiality agreement when you worked for me." Danielle grabbed the wall to steady herself. Robert snapped. "She doesn't work for you anymore." Martin didn't acknowledge him. "And more importantly," he continued, "you owe us something." Danielle shook her head violently. "No, I owe you nothing. I exposed your crimes." Robert's eyes widened. "You what?" But Martin ignored both of them and said the single sentence that made my blood freeze. "The baby was promised to a client months ago." Robert exploded. "You sick." I grabbed his arm. "Robert, stop." Martin's voice was calm, almost bored. "You stole company property, Danielle. And now you're trying to hide it." Danielle collapsed to the floor, sobbing. "I'm not property. My child is not property." Robert knelt beside her, pulling her close. Then Martin spoke again, this time with absolute certainty. "You have until tonight to hand over the baby's medical file." Robert stiffened. "What medical file?" Martin continued. "Your lab results. Blood type. Gestational age. DNA information." Robert froze mid-breath. "DNA? What DNA?" Danielle buried her face in her hands. Martin added, "And while you're at it, make sure Ethan stays in line. He's become sloppy." Robert looked at Danielle slowly. "What is he talking about?" he whispered. Danielle sobbed harder. Martin then said the words that shattered everything. "You never told him, did you?" Robert's entire body went rigid. "Told me what?" he whispered. I had never seen him so scared. Silence. Then Martin finished the sentence. "The baby has no biological father." My breath caught. Danielle gasped. Robert froze completely. Martin continued coldly. "We created it." The world fell out from under me. Danielle stared at the door like she couldn't breathe. No, that's a lie. That's not true." But Martin's voice was steady, confident. "Your pregnancy was part of our trial program. A controlled procedure. Monitored. Recorded. Owned. I felt sick. Robert whispered. "Danielle, what did they do to you?" Danielle looked shattered. "I didn't know," she whispered. "I swear, I didn't know. Not until after I left. After I found my test results." Martin stepped closer to the door. "Open the door, Danielle. Or tonight, everyone inside that house will suffer." And then, bang! A loud crash came from outside. Robert jumped. Danielle screamed. I looked back toward the window and froze. Ethan was running into the backyard, sweating, panting, wild-eyed. He shouted at Martin, "Stop! You said you wouldn't hurt her." Martin turned to him calmly. "You're no longer needed." Ethan's face twisted in terror. No, Martin, wait." He stepped back. Martin stepped forward. And in that moment, everything inside me snapped. This wasn't about fear anymore. This was survival. Ethan stumbled into the backyard like a man running from death itself. Sweat poured down his face, his shirt was torn, and his eyes were wild with panic. "Martin, stop," he shouted, his voice shaking. "You said you wouldn't hurt her. You promised." Martin didn't even flinch. He simply turned his head with slow, icy calm. "Ethan," he said in a flat, controlled tone, "you were useful. Not important. Ethan's breath caught. He stepped back. No, please. You told me if I brought her back, everything would be fine. Martin's eyes narrowed. And you failed. Inside the house, Danielle grabbed my arm. He'll kill him, she whispered. Martin doesn't forgive failure. Robert moved toward the kitchen screen door. I'm not letting that man murder someone in our yard. I pulled him back sharply. No. You open that door, we're all dead. Outside, Ethan's panic grew. You don't understand. She's scared. She needs time. She'll talk, just give me one more chance. Martin finally stepped closer, his black coat swaying with each slow, deliberate step. You had your chance. The girl is no longer your responsibility. Ethan froze, swallowing hard. Then he did something unexpected. He turned toward our door. Danielle. Ethan yelled desperately. Please. Open the door. Let me in. I can help you. I can fix this. No. Danielle screamed. Stay away. Robert grabbed her as she collapsed crying. Don't let him near me. Please don't let him near me. Outside, Martin watched her break down through the window like a scientist observing a lab rat. Cold. Emotionless. Calculating. Ethan turned back toward Martin, terrified. You can't take her. You can't take the baby. I deserve something. You promised me. Martin cut him off sharply. You were never getting the child. Ethan's face twisted in disbelief. What? But you said. Martin sighed, almost annoyed. You believed that? You? A failed recruit? A liability? Ethan staggered backward, like the insult physically hit him. Martin stepped closer. You were always a tool. Nothing more. Ethan shook with rage and humiliation. You ruined my life, he shouted. You tore everything from me. You dragged me into this. I helped you. I did everything you asked. Martin stared at him. And now, you've become a problem. Ethan stumbled backwards, directly toward the garden fence. No, Martin, please. Martin advanced. He reached into his coat. My heart nearly stopped. Mom, he's going to kill him, Robert whispered. Danielle sobbed into her hands. Ethan fell to his knees. I can still help. I know her routine. I know her habits. I know everything about her. Martin spoke with chilling finality. You've already said too much. Ethan screamed. No. And then, flash. A blinding light filled the backyard. A loud voice boomed. Police! Drop your weapon. Everything froze. Martin turned slowly. Annoyed, not afraid. 3 armed officers rushed into the backyard, guns raised. Hands up. Now. Martin lifted his hands calmly. But he was smirking. That scared me more than anything. One officer restrained Ethan instantly. Ethan didn't fight. He collapsed into their arms, crying, shaking, broken. But Martin, he simply stood there, perfectly composed, as if this was an inconvenience. The lead officer stepped forward. Martin Hale, you are under arrest for. Martin cut him off sharply. No, I am not. The officer stiffened. I said. Martin lifted his chin. You don't have jurisdiction. The officer's face tightened. Sir, this is a criminal investigation. You're being detained. Martin smiled. A slow, cold, horrifying smile. Call your supervisor. The officers exchanged uneasy looks. Danielle's face drained of all color. Oh my God, she whispered. He still has power. Even now. Robert looked at her. Who is this man? Danielle shook her head. You don't understand. Martin isn't just a businessman. He owns people. He controls politicians, doctors, lawyers. He buys protection. Outside, the officers hesitated. One finally spoke into his radio, calling a supervisor. Martin turned to face our window and looked directly at us. Not angry, not panicked, confident, like he already knew he wasn't going anywhere. Ethan, still on the ground, suddenly grabbed the sleeve of an officer. Please, he begged, shaking violently. You have to protect her. You have to hide her. He's not done. He'll kill all of them. The officer tried to calm him. Ethan, you need to stay still. But Ethan screamed. Listen to me. You don't know what he can do. Martin glanced at Ethan with boredom, then turned away. That small gesture told me everything. He wasn't worried. He wasn't afraid. He wasn't defeated. He was planning. Danielle whispered, her voice hollow with dread. If Martin walks away today, we won't survive tonight. And I realized something that chilled my spine. Ethan wasn't the monster. The monster was standing calmly in my backyard, surrounded by police. And smiling. Police spread out across the backyard like a tightening net. But even surrounded by 3 armed officers, Martin stood there with the posture of a man who owned the ground beneath their feet. Ethan, handcuffed and pinned to the grass, was shaking uncontrollably. He's lying. Ethan cried, pointing at Martin. He's dangerous. You don't understand, he owns people. The lead officer ignored him and stepped closer to Martin. We're detaining you until the supervisor arrives. Turn around. Martin didn't move. He simply said, No. Robert grabbed my arm. Mom, he's not scared at all. Why? Before I could answer, a police radio crackled.
Uni 5, superviseur en route est à 10 minutes.
Martin smiled faintly. Good. Danielle sank onto the couch, white as a sheet. You don't get it. Martin doesn't wait for police, they wait for him. Robert looked at her sharply. What do you mean? Danielle wiped her face with trembling hands. Martin funds politicians. Donates to police campaigns.
Paye lawyers salariés.
He's the kind of man you can't arrest without a judge's order. And even judges fear him. Outside, Martin looked bored. Ethan, however, looked like he was about to die from fear. Listen to me, he screamed. He's going to walk out of here. He always does. He never gets caught. An officer kneeled next to him. Calm down. No. Ethan roared. You idiots don't understand. He's been selling babies for years. The officer froze. Martin spoke calmly. Ethan. That's enough. That single sentence, quiet, flat, emotionless, made the air freeze. Ethan whimpered. Robert clenched his jaw. Mom, we have to help Danielle. If the police let him go. They will, Danielle whispered bitterly. He always walks free. Another officer approached Martin cautiously. Sir, for your safety and ours, please. Martin interrupted again. I said call your supervisor. His voice was low, but the officer stepped back involuntarily. That was power, the kind that didn't need shouting. Suddenly, Ethan twisted on the ground and screamed at Danielle through the window. Tell them. Tell them what he did to you. Tell them about the clinic. Danielle covered her ears. Stop, please stop. But Ethan didn't stop. You think he wants the baby? He screamed. You think he's after you? He doesn't care about you, Danielle. He wants his program protected. He wants his money protected. An officer snapped. Enough. Ethan kept screaming. The baby wasn't an accident. He put it in you. Danielle broke like glass. She sank to the floor, sobbing violently, her hands over her stomach. Robert ran to her. What does he mean? Danielle, what is he saying? She couldn't respond. She was shaking too hard. I knelt beside her. Danielle, answer him. What did they do to you? She slowly lifted her face, tears pouring down her cheeks. I didn't know, she whispered. I didn't know until it was too late. Robert looked terrified. Know what? Danielle's voice cracked. I never agreed to have a baby. I never agreed to any procedure. They did it without telling me. Robert looked like he couldn't breathe. You mean they? Danielle nodded weakly. I was part of a trial. A secret fertility experiment. They told me it was routine treatment, but they implanted an embryo without my consent. A genetically engineered embryo. Robert's face went pale. Engineered? Yes, Danielle whispered. Created in a lab. That's why they want it back. Robert staggered backward like her words physically pushed him. Oh my God. Inside the backyard, things suddenly escalated. One officer received a radio message, and his expression changed instantly. He turned to the others. Oh, we need to stand down. What? The lead officer snapped. Why? Supervisor's orders. Martin smiled. A slow, satisfied smile. The lead officer's jaw tightened, but he stepped back. Ethan screamed in disbelief. You idiots! He bought you to. The officer glared. This is official instruction. We have protocols. Martin finally lowered his hands. Good. Now take him away. He gestured toward Ethan. Ethan looked betrayed. No, please don't let him. The officers grabbed Ethan and pulled him to his feet. He fought like a wild animal. No. He'll kill me. Don't do this. Please, I'll tell you everything. Everything. Martin straightened his coat. You talk too much, Ethan. Ethan screamed. Danielle. He's not after you. He's after the file. The file. Don't give it to him. The officers dragged him toward a patrol car. Danielle collapsed again. Robert whispered. What file? Her eyes filled with terror. My prenatal file, she whispered. The one that proves the embryo wasn't natural. The one that proves what they did. Everything clicked. The unknown messages. Martin's arrival. His demand. He didn't want Danielle. He didn't want Ethan. He wanted the evidence. The truth. The police slammed the car door shut, muffling Ethan's screams. Martin turned toward our house. Very slowly. And then, he winked. A cold, confident wink. As if he were promising. This isn't over. I'm coming back. Danielle let out a broken sob. Robert held her tightly. I felt my own heart pounding like a war drum. Because I finally understood. Martin didn't care about revenge. He didn't care about Danielle. He didn't even care about the baby. He cared about the program. The secrets. The money. And now. He would do anything. To destroy anyone. Who knew the truth. The house felt unbearably quiet after the police cars left. Quiet. But not safe. Robert locked every door, every window, every bolt, twice. Danielle sat on the couch, knees pulled to her chest, shaking like the floor itself might give way. I brought her water, but she didn't touch it. She just stared straight ahead, as if Martin was still standing in the backyard. Robert finally broke the silence. Danielle, he said quietly, I need you to tell us everything. No more half-truths. No more hiding. Who are these people? What did they do to you? What is this file Ethan was screaming about? Danielle inhaled shakily. I never told anyone, not even the police, she whispered. If I had, they'd kill me before I finished speaking. She looked up at us, completely shattered. But you deserve to know. Both of you. Robert sat down in front of her. He sat beside her. There was no turning back now. Danielle closed her eyes and began. 3 years ago, she said slowly, I was working at the fertility clinic. Martin was the director, and there were special research rooms only certain staff could enter. I started noticing strange things. Patient files disappearing. Couples denied treatment even when they were healthy. Sudden private cases that weren't in the system. She swallowed hard. I confronted one of the nurses and she told me the truth. Robert whispered, which was? Danielle's voice trembled. They weren't just doing treatment. They were doing illegal embryo trials. Genetic engineering. Baby design. Secret adoptions for wealthy clients. Robert's face went pale. Danielle continued. Martin needed women who were young, healthy, and predictable. Women who wouldn't ask questions. A shiver went down my spine. Danielle's hands clenched tightly. He offered me a small bonus for participating in a routine hormone program. I thought it was just research for IVF success rates. Her voice cracked. But it wasn't hormones. It was a preparation protocol. And one day, they took me into a room, sedated me, and implanted an embryo. Robert's breath caught. You mean they forced pregnancy on you? Danielle nodded. When I woke up, a doctor said it was a side effect of the meds. I believed them. Because I was stupid. She wiped her tears. When I discovered the truth, I confronted Martin. He threatened me. He said I'd signed away my rights and the baby belonged to the company. He said there were clients waiting. She gagged, covering her mouth. I ran away that night. I quit my job, changed numbers, moved cities. Robert whispered. And you met me. Danielle nodded, ashamed. I didn't plan it. I didn't want to drag you into this. I thought if I kept quiet, they'd move on. Robert let out a shaky breath. So Ethan was working for Martin to bring you back. Yes, she whispered. But Ethan didn't know everything. He thought the baby was his. That's what Martin told him to keep him loyal. But when he found out the truth, he snapped. I remembered Ethan's last screams. The file. Don't give him the file. I looked at Danielle. The file Ethan mentioned, what's in it? Danielle clasped her hands together. It's the only proof of what they did. The embryo's origin. The experiment details. The DNA markers. Robert whispered. Where is it? Danielle hesitated. I stole it before I ran. I hid it somewhere no one would look. Robert leaned in. Where? Danielle finally answered. At the clinic. Robert blinked. You left the only proof. At the place where they can erase it. Danielle shook her head quickly. I didn't hide it inside the clinic. I hid it under the old storage shed behind the clinic. In a metal waterproof box. Buried. Robert stared at her in disbelief. Danielle, that was 3 years ago. Martin must have searched everywhere. He searched the building, she whispered. He didn't search the old shed. It was abandoned. They were planning to demolish it. My breath caught. And what if it's gone? Danielle sucked in a shaky breath. It's not. I check every few months from afar. The shed is still standing. Robert stood up abruptly. We need that file. Tonight. Danielle's eyes widened in terror. No. We can't go there. They watch that place. They monitor it. They might already know we're coming. Robert grabbed her shoulders gently. Danielle, without that file, Martin walks free. With that file, we bring him down. Danielle looked like she might faint. Martin will kill us, she whispered. If we go near that shed, he'll find us. Robert took her hand. Then we don't let him. And then, as if fate wanted to answer him immediately, a message alert chimed on Danielle's phone. She froze. Robert slowly lifted the phone from her trembling hands. The message was from unknown too. You're running out of time. Another message came instantly. We know about the shed. My blood turned to ice. Danielle covered her mouth. Robert looked up at me horrified. They already know. I whispered. They're one step ahead. Robert clenched the phone, rage building in his eyes. No. Not this time. We get the file. Before they do. And then, a third message came. Just 3 words. Words that shattered the remaining hope. We're already here. Robert looked up slowly, as footsteps echoed outside. Multiple footsteps. Coming from the driveway. The sidewalk. The backyard. Surrounding the house. Danielle whispered. They're not after me anymore. I whispered back. They're after the truth. Robert whispered. They're after the file. And then a voice came from outside. Cold. Familiar. Open the door. Martin. The house went silent. Not the normal quiet. The kind that comes right before a storm tears everything apart. Outside, footsteps circled the walls. Slow, heavy, intentional. Robert pulled Danielle close. Stay behind me, he whispered. I moved toward the window as quietly as I could. 3 dark silhouettes stood in the yard. All dressed in black. All wearing earpieces. Not police. Not random criminals. Professionals. Martin didn't bring goons. He brought a team. Danielle's phone buzzed again. Another message. It ends tonight. Robert grabbed the phone and threw it across the room. Enough, he hissed. We're leaving. Now. Danielle panicked. We can't. They're everywhere. We can't outrun them. Robert opened a drawer and pulled out my old car keys. We're not fighting them. We're escaping. He pointed toward the back hallway. Mom, take Danielle through the laundry room window. It opens into the neighbor's alley. I'll distract them. No. Danielle gasped. They'll kill you. Robert's jaw tightened. They're after the file. Not me. He grabbed a metal fire poker from beside the fireplace. Mom, go. Before I could argue. Bang, bang, bang. A fist slammed against the front door. Martin's voice echoed inside like poison. Carol. Robert. You're wasting time. Another loud hit shook the door. Danielle covered her ears, trembling uncontrollably. Martin spoke again, calm and cold. If you don't open the door in 10 seconds, I'll let my men do it for me. Robert grabbed Danielle by the arm. Move now. We ran down the hallway. Footsteps outside matched ours, like predators pacing with their prey. As we reached the laundry room, Danielle froze. What if they're waiting behind the house? She whispered. Robert gripped her shoulders. Would you rather wait in here? She didn't answer. I forced the old window open. Cold air rushed in. The alley was dim, empty for now. Robert helped Danielle crawl out first. Mom, go, he whispered urgently. I climbed halfway out, when a voice spoke from behind us. Going somewhere? I whipped around. One of Martin's men was standing in the hallway. He must have slipped inside while we were running. His eyes locked on Danielle. There you are. He lunged. Danielle screamed. Robert swung the metal poker with everything he had. Clang. The man crashed into the dryer, stunned. Go. Robert yelled. I pushed Danielle outside. We tumbled into the alley. Robert scrambled after us. But the man got up quicker than expected. He grabbed Robert's ankle. Robert kicked hard, breaking free, and jumped out the window. We ran. The alley felt endless. Every shadow looked like a threat. Behind us, Martin's team shouted. They're in the alley. North side, move. Don't let the girl escape. Danielle stumbled. I grabbed her hand and pulled her along. At the end of the alley, we burst into the next street. And froze. Another black SUV screeched into view, cutting us off. Doors flew open. 2 more men stepped out. One aimed a stun rod at us. Danielle gasped. They're everywhere. Robert pulled us behind a trash container. We're going to the shed, he said breathlessly. Danielle blinked in shock. Now? Yes. It's the only thing they care about. We get the file before they do. Or we're dead. She nodded slowly, terrified, but determined. We sprinted again. Behind us, one of the men shouted. Target moving. Southwest direction. The chase intensified. We cut through streets, backyards, empty lots, until we reached a main road. A single car sped toward us. It slowed down. My heart stopped. The window rolled down. And my blood froze. It wasn't Martin. It wasn't his men. It was Ethan. His face was bruised. His lip was bleeding. His hands still cuffed. But he was in the back seat of an empty police cruiser. He must have escaped or been left behind. He looked at Danielle desperately. Get in. Robert backed up. No. We're not trusting you. Ethan shook his head violently. You think I'm here to hurt her? I'm here to save her. Danielle looked shocked. You tried to drag me back to them. I didn't know. Ethan cried. I swear to God, I didn't know the baby was engineered. Martin told me it was mine. He told me you cheated on him with me. He used me. His voice cracked. I thought I was saving my family. I didn't know you were running from him. Robert hesitated. Danielle looked torn. Behind us, Martin's men turned the corner. Ethan screamed. You have 10 seconds. Get in the car. Robert glanced at Danielle. Do you trust him? Danielle shook her head, but whispered. He might be the only one who actually wants me alive. The men were getting closer. No time. I shouted. Robert made the choice for all of us. Get in. We piled into the police cruiser. Ethan slammed the door with his shoulder and yelled. Hold on. He jumped into the front seat, figured out the controls, and floored the accelerator. The car shot forward. Martin's men chased, but they were too late. We sped away. Danielle pressed her shaking hands over her stomach. They know about the shed, she whispered. We're going to die if we go there. Ethan glanced at her through the rearview mirror. No. I know something they don't. Robert held onto the seat. What? Ethan swallowed hard. The shed isn't the only place you hid something. Danielle stared at him, confused. What are you talking about? Ethan looked at her painfully. You told me once, before you ran, that if anything ever happened to you, you had a backup. Danielle's eyes widened. You remembered that? Ethan nodded. I remember everything. Robert leaned forward. What backup? Where is it? Ethan tightened his grip on the wheel. That backup is what Martin really wants. Danielle whispered. Oh my God. Robert pressed. Where is it? Ethan's voice was low. Grave. Final. Danielle hid the real evidence. In a place no one would ever check. Danielle's breath hitched. Ethan finished. It's not in the shed. It's with someone. Robert froze. Who? Ethan swallowed hard. Danielle whispered the answer before he could. My sister. My heart dropped. But Ethan shook his head. No. Not anymore. Danielle stared at him. What do you mean? Ethan met her eyes in the mirror. Because I moved it. Danielle gasped. You what? Where did you put it? Ethan took a deep breath. I put it where even Martin can't reach. Where? Robert shouted. Ethan whispered. With someone who can protect it. But his next words sent a chill through the entire car. And now, Martin knows. Danielle's voice cracked. Knows what? Ethan looked at her with absolute dread. Martin knows the backup file is with your mother. Danielle screamed. And the car swerved. The police cruiser swerved so sharply that Danielle screamed and grabbed the seat in front of her. My mother, she cried. Ethan, what are you talking about? Ethan's knuckles tightened around the steering wheel. I moved the backup file to someone Martin would never suspect. Someone completely outside his network. Danielle's voice shook violently. My mother doesn't even know about the file. Ethan looked at her through the mirror. That's exactly why she's safe. Robert leaned forward, furious. But Martin knows now. Ethan nodded grimly. He must have tracked me when I visited her last month. Someone followed me. I didn't know. I thought I was being careful. But I was wrong. Danielle covered her mouth. Oh my God, she's alone. She doesn't even lock her doors. Ethan, he will kill her. Ethan swerved the car again, speeding onto the highway. I know. That's why we're going now. The entire drive felt like a nightmare tightening around our throats. Every mile we got closer to Danielle's childhood neighborhood. She shook harder, until her whole body trembled uncontrollably. Oh God. What if we're too late? What if he's already there? What if? Danielle. Robert took her hand. We're getting her out. I promise. Ethan whispered, almost ashamed. I never wanted this. I never wanted your mother hurt. It was supposed to protect her, not paint a target on her back. Danielle looked at him with a pained expression. You should have told me. I know, he whispered. I thought I was doing the right thing. I was trying to fix what I broke. I stared at the road ahead. This wasn't about blame anymore. This was survival. Underscore 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 underscore. Ethan slammed the brakes when we reached the street. Danielle's mother's house sat under a flickering street lamp, small, quiet, the porch light glowing warmly. But something was wrong. The front door was slightly open. Danielle gasped. She ran before any of us could stop her. Danielle, wait. Robert shouted. We bolted after her. Danielle burst through the front door. Emom. Emom, answer me. Silence. Ethan pushed past us and checked each room quickly. Clear, clear, clear. We reached the kitchen. And there she was. Danielle's mother, sitting on a chair at the table. Just quietly sipping tea. Absolutely unharmed. Danielle collapsed with relief. Oh, thank God. Her mother blinked in confusion. Sweetheart, what on earth? But before she could finish, a shadow shifted in the hallway behind us. The air turned to ice. We turned slowly and saw him, Martin, standing inside the house, calm, composed, as if he owned the place. "How touching," he said softly. "A family reunion." Danielle froze. Robert stepped in front of her. Ethan's face drained of all color. Danielle's mother looked confused. "Who is this man?" Martin smiled. "Someone who has been patient for far too long." He stepped closer, and from behind him, 2 of his men appeared, blocking the exit. "We were trapped." Danielle's voice cracked. "Please leave her out of this. She knows nothing." "Oh, I know," Martin replied. "That's why this is very simple." He reached into his coat. Robert tensed, ready to fight. But Martin didn't pull out a weapon. He pulled out a single sheet of paper, the backup file summary. But not the real one. A decoy printout. "I don't want her," Martin said calmly. "I don't want you." His eyes shifted to Danielle's stomach. "I want what belongs to me." Danielle screamed. Ethan stepped forward suddenly. "No. You're not touching her." Martin didn't even look at him. "You were useful, Ethan. But your role is finished." He nodded to his men. They moved toward Danielle. Robert lunged. Ethan tackled one man. I grabbed a vase and smashed it into another. Danielle's mother screamed. Chaos erupted. But Martin didn't move. He simply waited for the chaos to burn itself out. Robert punched one guard in the jaw. Ethan slammed another into the wall. I yelled for Danielle to run. "Get out. Go out the back." She stumbled backward, toward the back door. But Martin stepped into her path. "You're not going anywhere, Danielle." Her breath caught. She looked like a deer trapped between headlights. Robert ran toward her, and Martin pulled out a syringe. A long one, filled with a clear liquid. "Step back, Robert," Martin said calmly. "We need the fetus intact." Danielle screamed. But before Martin could touch her, Ethan jumped between them, and Martin stabbed the syringe into Ethan's chest instead. Ethan gasped, eyes wide in shock. Danielle shrieked. "No." Ethan staggered backward. Martin rolled his eyes. Pathetic. Robert tackled Martin to the ground. Danielle caught Ethan as he fell. He struggled to breathe. "I am sorry," he choked. "I didn't know. I never knew what they were doing." "Don't talk," Danielle cried. "Just stay with me." He shook his head weakly. Take the file, not here, in the coat inside." He pointed shakily at Martin's coat. Martin fought Robert viciously. The men regrouped. Ethan whispered his last words. "Don't let him take the baby." His body went still. Danielle's scream echoed through the house. Something inside Robert snapped. He punched Martin again and again. Martin struggled, blood on his face. "You idiots," he spat. "You think this ends with me? There are dozens more. You can't stop us." But Robert tore open Martin's coat and found it. A small metal USB drive. The real backup file. The evidence of everything. Danielle gasped. He kept it with him. Robert looked at her. "This ends tonight." Martin laughed. "You don't even know who you're fighting." "That's the difference," Robert said. "I don't have to win." He lifted the USB. "I just have to expose you." Danielle's mother dialed 911. Martin's remaining man lunged. But I slammed a chair into him. Police sirens wailed in the distance. Martin stopped laughing. "No," he whispered. "No, no." Robert pinned him until officers burst inside and swarmed the house. Martin was dragged away screaming. "You'll regret this. You think you've won. This is bigger than all of you." But no one listened. For the first time, Martin Hale was powerless. And the night ended. 3 months later, Martin and his entire network were exposed. Doctors, lawyers, clients, everyone arrested. Danielle's file was the key. Ethan's sacrifice saved them all. Danielle gave birth to a healthy baby girl. Robert held them both, tears in his eyes. And I finally had a family again. Not perfect. Not simple. But real. Danielle placed the baby in my arms. Meet the little girl who survived an entire empire, she whispered. I kissed her tiny forehead. You're safe now, I whispered. And for the first time, it was true.